Morning and welcome back. So it's the start of a new week. Well, I was thinking last night, it's Saturday, so this is the first time in my life that Saturdays felt like the start of the week. But given that the videos are finished off on Friday and uploaded, it's everything's wiped off, and Saturday is the new day. Anyway, what to do next, and what comes to mind is that given that my mood is relatively good at the moment and I have some inertia, as it were, I thought I will carry on the path of the steps, etc. And for those that have been watching from the start, you remember when I did the lining, I couldn't bring myself to do the rear stern hatch and line that out, etc. And that needs to be done. So that is what I'm planning to do. So it's back to the world of sticks and all that kind of palaver, and making some steps as well. I mean, I've got an in place ladder at the moment, but that's not for the long term. And that will mean that I will, I need to get that. Once I get the door weatherproof, I can finally take the tarp off, which means I can have a bit more access to the stern, etc., etc. So that will be some good progress. So let's see how we go.
Well, as you might expect, Stephen's sawmill and sanding shop has reluctantly had to reopen again for business. So the next bit, I have to slice these. I need these to be 6 centimetres high, and unfortunately the blade only goes to 5. So reluctantly, I've had to take the guard off, which I don't like doing and want to do. I have to do these in a 2-pass. I always wonder when I've got the dust extractor on how much it's working, because it seems to be loads of dust all the time. However, without it, it's clear that actually it does a fairly decent job. And given that, alas, I've realised that I'll have to do quite a few more manoeuvres without the guard stroke dust extractor, I think it's time for a mask, otherwise I'm going to be choking by the end of the afternoon. So what that performance is all about is that, unlike last year when I did the doors, I've tried to, rather than using lots of different pieces, I've tried to do it all in one, as you can see. Whether this works, because the downside of this is there's no adjustment, there's no fiddling about. But if it works, that will be good. A lot better than faffing around with lots of different bits of wood. Well, the frames are in, but alas, I very quickly realised I made a bit of a boo-boo, and I'd made them too deep. So after all that faffing around with the double cut for the 6mm, what I basically did, I calculated, well, I've got 5 centimetres thick of insulation. I need like another 9mm for the covering board, so I did them for 6. And then I realised they're going to clash. You can't basically close the too thick for the door to act properly. And now I come to think about it, it was so long, I now remember that should have just measured it at the start, I know. But the front door, I ended up hacking the insulation down to a much thinner level because you can't get the full 5 centimetres in there and still have the doors closing. So I'll have to take these back to the damn table saw and chop them down a bit. However, it's now into the early evening, and table saws and late days are never a good combination. So that is something we'll wait for the morning. Morning, just about. Well, it's Sunday, so I had a late-ish start. Anyway, when I did start, so I've now rectified this, so I can close these now, which is good. And I also did a bit more sanding, because these are pressed metal doors, so there are no perfect angles. There's bumps and bends and things, but that's good. So next step is which is the worst bit, putting the lock in. Oh, and talking of good, I was looking yesterday at the comments from last week's video. So thank you very much for everybody who made comments. They're nice regardless, well, as long as they're not telling me how rubbish I am. But also, it was very, very touching that a lot of you were sort of concerned for my my welfare, as it were, and I do that in bunnies, but you know what I mean. I'm not dismissing it. It was very nice, and you're right. No, I should start, and I will start taking a few more breaks because after doing this for so long, you know, you need to have some recuperation. Otherwise, I'm just going to run myself into the ground. Anyway, talking of running myself to the ground, I'm hungry, so it's time for lunch. As it's a nice afternoon, I've taken the tarpaulin back and taken the door off. A lot easier to work with on the flat rather than high up on the hinges. Well, somehow, along with rain stopping play several times, that's taken all ruddy afternoon. Anyway, they're got some sticks all in now, and I'll leave those overnight, and hopefully they'll all set. On the way to the water point, it's rather nice. Trouble having to make the doors thinner is it means I have to make the insulation thinner, which is a bit of a pain. And I'm trying my best to keep as many of the bits in the rubbish bag, but I do confess I'm creating a bit of a snowstorm in July. Morning. Well, a bit of a detour now because I have yet another parental visit. This time my mother and stepfather are about to arrive in the next couple of hours. This is, by the way, it's entirely coincidental. Both my father and then my mother and stepfather are arriving in a matter of a couple of weeks together. But yeah, so it'd be nice to see them, and I need to decide what to do. It would be great if I could also employ them, like my father, on some of the outside painting. However, despite the fact that I'm sitting here and it looks a lovely day, the weather at the moment is all over the shop, but mainly tending towards rain. This is a rare moment. So alas, I'm going to have to think of something else, and it may be some of that indoor painting that I've just been pushing to the back. I might see if I can press them onto that. So, if you thought my father was camera shy, you should. My mother's even worse. So this is probably the most you're going to get of seeing those two. See, my mother is hiding. Say hello. Keep walking. Camera's loving you. So, after a quick cup of tea, we're all hard at work, including me. However, they're not going to be happy when they see this. I snuck this video without telling them, and this is a post-video voiceover. So, sorry, Mum and Michael. Anyway, thank you very much. Thanks very much. Bye. Well, despite the not so great weather, we managed to get quite a lot done with my parents here. The inside painting, as you can see, there's some undercoat gone on the cupboards, and the top surfaces have now been varnished, which is good. And the undercoat meant that I could then put some final coat on the steps, which I've used the grey paint that I used on the roof boxes because white wasn't going to be a suitable colour for steps, and I had it. And then the upper walls have had their first coat of white eggshell. And the ceiling's been painted with 2 coats. So that means I've been able to put all the ceiling lights in. And I was worried slightly that I wouldn't have enough, they won't be powerful enough, but if anything, actually a little bit too bright. Not that I'll be having them all on at once. Anyway, another thing ticked off. My mother painted this little cupboard that I'd made previously when I was doing the toilet bits. So it's just a little cupboard to use the space by the bathroom sink, and in there's the things. And also I've put a little USB port in there, so my toothbrush charges from that, so I then just can leave it charging and out of the way. So not as attention to detail as Chris here at the Boatyard, who is unbelievable in the thought that he puts into things. However, I'm quite pleased with that. And lastly, but by certainly no means leastly, my mother painted the seat area for the toilet. So, there, as you can see, that's the door inserts, has the insulation in, and the, word escapes me, lid, it's not a lid, but you know what I mean, inner lining, and the lock-in. So, not yet finished yet. I have to put the sort of the ceiling trim around the sides, and up here there's a trim around here. However, that will be all in another video, because the week is coming to an end and it won't be done by the end of this video.
Afternoon. Well, next step, and that is no pun intended, is the steps, which are for the back, which are more a ladder, if I'm honest. And one of the things, they're quite straightforward, but they also have to think about it quite a lot. And it's the whole thinking is getting the balance between having them as sort of the angle as shallow as possible to make the going up and down slightly easier, but on the other hand, you don't too shallow and you're using too much space. So it's the balance between taking too much space and being able to use them. So anyway, this is the first attempt, and again I'm using the offcuts of 25mm ply because I've got lots of it and I might as well use it somewhere.
So, as you can see, I've then set out where the treads will be and routed out some channels for the treads just to secure the treads into the sides. And the next step will be to screw and glue them together. Morning. Well, despite what I said last night, and I didn't do anything more because I was getting tired, I decided this morning that I'm actually just going to screw them together first of all and see how they work in case they need any modifications, rather than obviously putting glue in and then I'm, no pun intended, stuck. Just noticed above the car, it's I'm parked under an apple tree. So let's get through a lot of apples. I'm hoping that in a couple of months' time I might be able to pick some. Well, that's them glued together, and it seems pretty solid, which is what you want. And I'm having a quick visit from Mr. Trim, because I realised that there's an awful lot of exposed plywood on that plywood edges, that is. And just to make it A, look a little bit better, and B, you know, with it being steps, try and stop chipping the edges, I'm going to have cut these down to size, and I'm going to put them on. Well, I must say, if Mr. Trim is as useful as he has been on the steps, he can definitely come and visit again. They're quite transformed to the extent that while I was going to paint them, I'm very tempted to try and give them a coat of varnish instead. The only trouble is, for the actual steps, I used the square of the floor that I cut out for the hearth for those who have been watching all along, and because of that, as you can see, it's a bit grubby, and you can also see where I marked some of my sort of lines out for when I was doing the hearth. So I'll have to, and unfortunately the steps are too narrow that I can't get a power sander in there, so I may at a later date, because it's absolutely teeming down with rain at the moment and I'd want to do this outside, I might have a go at a quick light hand sanding to see if we can get it into a reasonable state. Otherwise they'll be painted. There's just a couple of blocks holding them in place at the moment. I mean, obviously then they land against the door. When they actually come around to do it, there's these that will go, and then they'll hook just down in there. You just about see. The reason I haven't put these on at the moment is there's still a floor to go, floor covering at the very end to go, and when that happens, of course, everything will lift up, so those would be in the wrong place. So it's fine for now. they're not the greatest of ease of use steps coming down because they're so narrow. But I was constrained by where the cupboards are. Any sort of deeper, and wouldn't be able to open this cupboard or that cupboard, which would be a bit of a pain. Anyway, I did think about. You do see ones where where alternately they sort of cut a little kidney shape out. Therefore, you've got a bit more depth. And I did think about doing that, but as well as being more faff, I also thought that that's all very well, but you've got to remember to start each side. You've got to start on the right foot, otherwise you're out of sync and you just fall down. And I thought, well, at one point I will forget, and then I'll topple over. And then there's also the visitors. It's easier. So this, while it's you have to still take care because you're basically only getting, your heel coming down. I think they should be fine. It will be nice when I finally get the back sorted. It will be nice to be able to get in and out. The scrap child's bunk bed ladder has been very useful, but these are darn easier to use than those.
Well then, it's Friday afternoon, and certainly no beers by the canal side this week, or beers outside anywhere. It's still absolutely tipping down with rain, and going to be for the rest of the day and probably tomorrow. Anyway, it's I have to say it's been a reasonably good week. It was lovely to have my the other set of parents come, and they really did help. Just like my father, by the way. I don't want to, there's no competition here, but both of them were really very helpful. And I got a bit further ahead on, and including some nicer things like some of the paint and the lights, which weren't. It's all on the menu, but really good to have progressed. And the things that I did intend to do, while they're not quite finished, the lining's still a bit more. I've got to paint it and put the inside trim on and things like that. But as soon as the weather improves, I'll do that. So that's about another couple of days. And the rear steps are again need to be finished, as in varnished or painted. But otherwise, the fiddly bit of working out construction is done. So a good week. So I think that's about it. It's not quite 5 o'clock yet, so there's no drink in my hand. But anyway, thanks for watching. And talking of visitors, I may have a visitor, and I also may go and have a visit next week. And if so, there won't be enough time to make a video. So if there's no video next week, don't worry. There will be one following week. Or it might be just a very short one. Let's see what happens. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and catch you later.